Hi, everyone. It's Dr. Katherine Kelly. I am here to do your June forecast. I call it the Evolving Souls forecast because, partially I follow this through an astrological perspective, which is why I created a fun background for us today. But also, it's this whole idea of how is it that you tune into the soul so that you know what you need from a soul care perspective and a soul health perspective as you navigate human life. And so this is why I'm calling it the Evolving Souls Forecast. And I weave in, again, my own intuition and what I do know of astrology. I am not an astrologer. I will never say that I'm an astrologer, but I do follow the stars. I follow people who talk about the stars because it's very, very helpful from a therapy perspective to know, okay, what are the trends of what people are going to be going through? What are the grand schemes of what's happening energetically in the world. So this is what I'm going to be talking about today. And I'm going to be going through June. Now, I'm going to do a little bit of a reminder and recap of what May, actually, even what April was about, because basically, April, May, June, even part of March, were all very action-oriented months, meaning that there's a lot stirred up. There's a lot that's taking shape. There are a lot of people that are taking charge. There's a lot of take charge energy. There's a lot of recreating. There's a lot of kind of pushing out into the new. There's a lot of shedding the old skins. There's a lot of that has been going on for the last few months that, people are kind of feeling revved up a little bit to make change and to basically say, don't want to do this anymore the same old way. And also, there's a lot of energy about being introspective and really taking stock in what do I want in my life that's the same? What do I want to change? What do I want to shed? What do I want to grow into? What's working? What's not working? And, so again, May has been very um, action oriented in an interesting way because it's more action oriented in an introspective way. You may not be taking charge of your life right now. You might be actually taking stock in your life, kind of looking at what is it that's working, what's not working, how do I envision my future. What's really interesting about this is, I look at spring energy in general. Now, spring is my time. Usually, March, April, I am like gearing up energetically. I've got, a ton of energy. I burst forward. I've been effective. I've done some things, and yet I've been so sluggish. I've been so tired. And some of it is all of the energies that are out here. And I'm just going to look back at my notes and share with you, one of the things that one of the astrologers that I follow said is that we are entering the fifth industrial revolution, meaning that the energy of technology is just speeding up. And so she talked about AI, and obviously we all know that AI is kind of taking over everything. She talked about the field of medicine and how many more innovations are going to come out, how many discoveries, how many collaborations are going to be happening, all this like movement within the medical world, aviation and travel. So, we've already had a lot going on with NASA. We've had a lot going on with just travel in general. And how is it that things are changing? Um, kind of laboratory. So in other words, what is it that's going on in labs? What kind of research is being done? What's happening? But everything is like fast moving right now. So even though you may or may not be taking part in the actual global change, you may be seeing it and watching it and going, whoa, whoa, what is happening here? So your head might be spinning a little bit to try to figure this out. But the other thing that's happening is people are taking a harder look internally. They're looking at, okay, who am I as a human being? Who am I as a part of this world? When you look at this picture, if I'm one of these little stars, how is it that I fit into the entire system here? And what impact can I make? And what impact do I want to make? And how is it that I can play a bigger role for myself? But this is where I'm trying to help people understand that there are some layers to this. So my notes for May and really April, May, June, going into July is that my thoughts are it's like it's almost like the disillusionment. It's like, it's like feeling like, whoa, what is happening here? What is going on? Kind of feeling swirly headed, just watching things happen so fast and trying to anchor yourself in something. I made a little note here. It's kind of like the smoke of mirrors. We have to figure out what's real for us. We have to figure out what works for us. We have to figure out, where do you want to put your energy? Where do you not want to put your energy? Where are you aligned? Where are you not aligned? And so, if you're feeling disillusioned with the state of the world, you're not alone. Millions of people are, and probably billions of people are. But it is a time of introspection. It's a time that we have to look back so we can look forward. So, this last month has been a lot about changing your internal vision, redirecting your path, but it's moving into much more expansion, much more, again, June is going to be very much about expansion and action as well. So if you're feeling like you can't catch your breath, if you're feeling like you can't get grounded, that is very true. That's what's happening for a lot of people right now. And so, June, I'm going to talk about the June forecast and kind of how to handle this from a soul perspective. Now, keep in mind, when I talk about the soul, it is the energetic essence of who we are. So it is our own individual microcosm of what we experience. And we're just one of these teeny tiny dots in here. But if we can look at the bigger picture, if we can look at what's happening from a bigger picture and then kind of observe, wow, how is this affecting me? How is this putting me on alert to look at things? How is this kind of putting me on alert to look internally? How am I being affected emotionally? How am I being affected with what I think about myself or my place in the world? This is why I do these, because I want to help people get through the human condition as easily as possible. But the thing is, sometimes we have to look at the bigger picture in order to go inward. So June is going to be about a lot more action. So we're not going to really be able to catch our breath. It is still about expansion. It's still about things that are driving us forward and driving us to look bigger and to look wider. Um, there is a lot from an astrological perspective. There are only a few key, maybe a handful of key events that are happening. Now, July is going to be a totally different story. But there are a few key events that are happening in June, but again, major things to take a look at. And so there's a lot of fire energy, there's a lot of air energy. What happens with fire energy is that it's like, oh, let me jump forward, let me try to take some action, let me do things differently. So it's a lot of Aries energy, a lot of that, again, take charge, take hold, take the wheel energy, but also we have a lot of air energy coming in. And the thing with that is, if you think about trying to take the reins of something that's blowing around in the wind, you're going to feel wobbly. You're going to feel like, whoa, I'm trying to take control of this, but it's like getting blown around. So it's like when you have a big windstorm and you're on a road and your car is still moving, even though you have your hands firmly gripping the wheel, you're going to still feel like you are moving around and you're kind of being pushed around in a way. But really, what do you do when you're behind that wheel? You hold on and you pay attention more. And so that is what this is all about. That's what June is about, is okay, taking the reins and taking the reins of the wheel and holding on, but also paying attention to the wobbliness, the kind of when you're feeling blown around, and paying attention to how is that making you feel? Paying attention to how is it that you can find some grounding and find some anchor when you see all of this stuff going on in the world, because that is part of your evolution, is to be more conscious and aware of what you can do to align your own soul, and being more conscious and aware of how you take care of yourself and how you ground yourself and how you observe your reactions rather than reacting. So it's one of those things where, again, we're going to have a lot of continued change, but it's going to feel swirly. It's going to feel like you've got this slightly tornadic energy around, and you're going to need to just be very mindful and introspective along the way. What's interesting too about June is that, and I'm going to talk more about June step by step, but about June is like, because we have to go within, it's actually getting ourselves, it's like a near-death experience. It jolts you awake in some ways. And what happens is you go inward to the point where your heart space kind of opens up. So we're going to be, I'm going to talk about this, but we're going to be kind of finding a little more compassion, and we're going to be finding a little bit more likelihood of letting people, I don't know, giving people a little bit of a break for their behavior in some ways, not the bad behavior, but it's like, oh, wow, I have more compassion toward this person. And hopefully you will also have more compassion towards yourself. So as we enter June, there's not a ton to as far as major events. We're always going to have full moon, we're always going to have new moon. Those are always going to be aspects that are there every month. But what I'm going to be talking about are some of the key events that go in and above that, those kinds of situations. Again, it's still an action-oriented month, but it's going to be going inward. On June 19th, Chiron, let's see here, Chiron actually enters Taurus. So um, again, Taurus is much more kind of methodical, much more self-care oriented, much more self-worth oriented, kind of a little bit of appearance oriented. But we also, toward the end of the month, Jupiter, let's see here. Well, let me back up. We have Mercury going into retrograde on June 29th. So we have the whole month that we're not really going to be as stirred up as we will be in July. But, for those who are sensitive, people who have kind of an energetic sensitivity, and specifically those who, wherever Mercury goes into retrograde, that particular sign are the people who are going to be affected the most. But the thing is, we have a little bit of sensitivity coming up because of that. Those who are sensitive can start to feel it about 3 weeks ahead. It goes into retrograde on the 29th and doesn't go out until July 23rd. But, when Mercury's in retrograde, this is an introspective time. This is about taking stock. This is about taking stock in particular kinds of things. I'm going to talk a lot more about this in July's video because it's going to affect you much more in July. But it is something to think about because it is, if you're starting to feel a little stirred, you're having communication issues, you're having like some of your old stuff is coming up, or things are being revealed to you. Part of it might be because Mercury is basically stirring the energies to give you the opportunity to look at those things. And then the third thing, again, I'm going to explain these a little bit more, is that Jupiter, let's see here what date that is. Jupiter actually does something, where is that? I don't think I wrote that down. It goes into Leo. And so again, Jupiter is always about expansion and change, but Chiron and Leo are also about change as well. It shapes how that change happens. So we've got that coming. And the beautiful thing about June is that it's still gonna be more of the same. It's not gonna jolt people probably the same way as some of the previous months, and it's certainly not gonna jolt you like July is going to jolt us. So we're gonna talk about that. All right, so again, I talked about the fact that Jupiter is about expansion. It is in Cancer, the sign of Cancer through most of the month, but it actually goes into, what did I say? It goes into Leo. This whole month is going to initiate thought about self-care in a way that probably hasn't been there in the past. So it's almost like coming back to home, coming back to your own soul, coming back to your own soul health, coming back to realizing, wow, okay, I am a human. I am a being on this planet, and I need to take care of myself. And I'm really stressed out, or I'm really not feeling good physically. And so I'm going to start taking care of myself differently. So if you start craving the need to be a little bit more mindful of your nutrition, be a little bit more attentive to your physical activity, be more attentive to your rest or your sleep, it's probably because the energies are setting themselves up in a way to create that. And I think that that's really good because part of this is self-care, and soul care is such an important part of our soul's evolution, and knowing and being aware of what we need to do, that it's going to actually help us get to that point. But here's the deal. I always talk about the fact that we have to know our souls to know true health. What I find beautiful about the energies of June is that it's going to set us up into that place where we actually start going within more, we start listening more, we start looking for that voice, or at least listening to the voice that has already been there, but you haven't been listening to. So it's almost like with Jupiter going into Leo, it's almost like wanting to allow your soul out more, wanting to allow that radiance to take hold and to, I guess, attend to it more. And so this is actually kind of a cool month for me to watch because I do think more people are going to be interested in self-care and soul care. Let me take some, let's see here. Throughout this month, and let me say this. So Chiron, the teeny tiny planet Chiron, and Jupiter. Those are the big showmen this month. In other words, the big kind of influencers this month. Chiron is about the wounded part of you, the wounded healer, the wounded, that kind of taking a look at what is wounded, what needs to take place in order for further evolution to happen and also for more healing to happen. Now, Chiron has been, let's see here, Chiron has been in Aries, I don't know, for, I don't know, 7 years, something like that. And it's going to be in, where are we going? It's actually going into, see, now I have to go back and look at um, my notes. It is going into Taurus. That's right. It's going back into Taurus. So again, the beautiful thing is Chiron is going to initiate more thought about, wow, what are the remnants? What else do I need to heal? What from past needs to heal? But also, again, Chiron and Jupiter are both about that self-care piece, both about going back to your home base and realizing, wow, I need to have compassion not only for other people, but for myself. And to me, this is the epitome of soul health. The epitome of my whole soul health model is how do we become more aware of what we need in those 10 branches of the human condition that I've noted? And how is it that I start to weave that into who I am, weave that into kind of a regimen or a routine for myself? The other beautiful thing is that this month, June, is going to be a lot more heart spaced. And so, and when I say heart spaced, it's like, okay, we're going to have that compassion. We're going to start opening up to ourselves more. But it's almost like compassion has an opening now. Compassion has a way to get into more of the hearts and souls that it hasn't been in for a while. So we might be surprised at what people say. If they're not very compassionate people, you might just see a little smidge of how they're going to become more compassionate. If you haven't been very kind to yourself, you might start to notice, wow, I don't want to beat up on myself anymore. So that's a beautiful thing too. Let me see here. What else do I need to tell you? Physical body. So what's really interesting is I have been for a long time talking about how do we pay attention to body, mind, and soul? How do we consciously decide, wow, what does my body need right now in order to feel grounded or healing or go through that healing process, whatever that may mean? How do I look at mind? So in other words, what are my thoughts? And do I need to quiet my mind? What is it that's going on up here and intellectually? And do I have a busy mind? And then the other part of it is soul. Now, what's beautiful again about June is that the planets are going to kind of set the stage for people to be more mindful about their bodies, minds, and souls. So I didn't realize this was coming until I started listening to the astrology, but it's that whole idea of, okay, so this is setting people up to do more soul health work. This is setting people up to do more soul healing. Sometimes that does have to come through the body because we cannot feel good as a soul if our bodies are feeling misaligned. So, the last several months, I had been really tired and really exhausted and really worn out. Some of that is because the energies that are outside of me. Some of that is that I was working too much and too hard and I burned myself out. And so, really, I've been paying attention to what my body needs, but this is something that's going to happen for a lot of people. They're going to start to turn to themselves to go, okay, I need to anchor myself in my body, take care of myself differently so that I can hear myself more. And that was my point earlier, is that when I was really feeling so exhausted, I could not, I mean, I could stay attentive for clients and colleagues, and friends, but I could not really hear my own soul as easily. I couldn't hear my spirit guides. I couldn't hear what universe was trying to tell me as close or clearly because I was just bogged down. I was exhausted. And so I've been doing a ton of self-care to kind of recover and rehabilitate myself. But this is what's really wonderful and cool about this is that it looks as if, again, planets are going to be aligned for more people to look at their lives and do the self-care from that body perspective. So again, if you're starting to crave healthier foods or kind of going, ooh, I don't want that greasy food anymore, or don't want as much sugar, or don't want as much alcohol, or whatever it might be, it's probably because it's time. It is time to look at that. So I'm calling it going home to our bodies and going home to our souls. This is kind of what June is about, is taking stock, realizing that, wow, okay, I don't want to be in this unhealthy skin anymore. So what do I do to change that? So again, looking at food, looking at activity, looking at sleep, looking at other things you put in your body, looking at whatever you can. Also, how is it that you can do more intentional and mindful movement? So even if you're going out for a walk, just be more mindful of it. Pay attention to your movements. Pay attention to your feet touching the ground as you walk. Pay attention to how the breeze feels on your skin, or how your hair is blowing around, whatever it might be. Start to pay attention to what that mindfulness about your body and about your beingness as a human body. Same thing with nutrition. You'll be able to pay more attention to how you feel after you've eaten something and how you feel if you've eaten something that you don't really, that's not really great for you. You're going to notice some heightened awareness about that. The most important thing, and this goes about the mind. So we're talking about the body, we're talking about the mind now. That this is such an opportunity, and I can't say how big of an opportunity and how important it is to remember this right now, is to develop some sort of practice of presence right now. And presence is all about mindfulness and all about consciousness and all about self-awareness, but it's really about, how do I just stay present? How do I stay present in work? How do I stay present in a conversation I'm having with a friend, or stay present with even a stranger on the road? How do you stay present rather than letting that monkey mind go all over the place like we normally do? Because it is this, again, June is about body, mind, and soul. But in order to get to the soul, we have to do some good things for our body. We have to do some good things for our mind so that we can hear ourselves from that soul level. So a practice in presence, what does that mean? That means, paying close attention to every chew, every bite that you have, and every movement of chewing. Paying attention to how slowly that you're able to, like, mash up the food in your mouth. Because if you're pushing forward and you're not being mindful, you're going to lose the point, and you're going to lose the connection that you could develop with yourself and your soul, both with a body perspective, mind perspective, soul perspective. But if you don't slow down and pay attention and stay very present with as much of this as you can, you're kind of going to miss the train. You're going to miss the boat. You're going to miss the opportunity to develop your soul at a deeper level. It's so imperative for us, especially in June and July, like really being in tune with yourself. And this isn't just from a thoughts perspective. This is like, how do you experience everything at this moment? So that practice and presence is going to be huge. And if you want to get ahead of the game, that's the point. And when I say head of the game, is head of the game of the soul evolution of the population, because everything is moving so fast right now. But those who are staying present, those who are staying mindful, those who are choosing to go internally and just do the introspective work, but also pay attention and observe the world and look at how you relate to the world as you're moving through it in your humaning form. It's that whole idea of, you will be ahead of the game. You will be able to maneuver and outmaneuver all the chaos that could happen. But it's also this idea of, that is how our souls evolve. That is how, I said this years ago, that is how our souls will basically transcend all of the challenges that are going on around us. And so, I said for years that our soul is the most important part of our evolution. And this is what this is about. It's the presence, it's the mindfulness, it's the awareness of, what do I need, what do I not need? And also the kind of macro presence of, who am I with respect to the rest of the world? So that consciousness, that level of awareness is what will get you ahead of the game. It's what's going to get you through and help you cope throughout this presence, or the whole pattern that's coming. This is also, in practicing presence, this is an enormous opportunity for us to continue looking at, okay, what are the karmic threads? I call them threads. What are the things that are still attached to us that we need to resolve, need to dissolve, and need to let go of? And so my newsletter from May was, are you willing to commit to your future in order to let go of the past? Well, this is kind of what this is about, is, are you willing to continue doing the work to finish up some of the old work that you needed to do, so you can move in probably to new levels of work that you have to work on, but then also cleaning up all those ideas that are holding you back? Now, because this is an opportunity to look at karmic patterns, you might be stirred in a different kind of way. So as the world is going through what it's going through on a global level, you're probably still going to be like pierced with experiences of, oh gosh, I'm afraid of not having enough. So that scarcity response, um, a scarcity of or an instability factor. So wow, this world feels really unstable. How am I going to make it? Another one is just, oh, am I good enough to make it? Am I good enough to be taken care of? Am I good enough to really be saved in the process? Now, nobody's going to have to save you. This is about kind of battling those demons, looking at those sort of gremlins that still play a part in what your thoughts are, and looking at it from that presence perspective to say, wait a minute, if I stay grounded, if I stay centered, if I stay within my own alignment, I can make it through anything. But it's very easy for people to get thrown off that course. And so, these kind of karmic patterns that are kind of holding you back, this is the time to really look for, okay, what kind of fears do I tend to fall to? What are the anxieties that get triggered, and stay ahead of it by watching for them and going, okay, wait a minute, how do I want to navigate this? How do I want to outmaneuver whatever the human condition throws at me? But this is about coming into a new you, because this is the evolutionary part. If you can become divinely present as you watch yourself go through this process, you're going to elevate yourself beyond those old fears. And if you know what they are ahead of time, you're going to, again, have a heads up so that you can handle this as this unfolds. The other part of it is feeling secure within the world. And boy, how many buttons are getting pushed about that right now? Because being a psychologist, being someone who does soul healing, everybody that I'm working with is getting triggered in one way or another, and feeling like, oh gosh, am I going to be okay? Am I going to be taken care of? Am I going to be am I going to be left behind or forgotten? Am I going to be like, what is the world going to do to take care of me? And some of it is the world taking care of you, but the primary part of it is developing that strong sense of connectedness with your soul. Again, that's why you have to become divinely present. That's why you have to become very aware of yourself, and find that practice of presence to just observe yourself. Because the more connected you get to your soul, the more you connect with the universe. And I know that's hard to understand until you experience it and feel it. But that's where manifestation comes in. That's where asking for what you need comes in. That's where all of that divine energy starts moving through you, is when you get and stay connected. That is when everything flows. And I tell people, if you work with your soul, you work with the universe. If you work with the universe, it works with you. So in other words, this is how this all works, is energetically speaking, the more grounded and aligned we can learn to become, even in the midst of chaos, when the world is swirling around us, that is how we are going to navigate. This is how we are going to evolve, is to stay very grounded. Now, again, I started to say this a few minutes ago, but it's I have said for years that the soul will be our salvation. Now that sounds like some, I don't know, esoteric kind of statement, but the thing is, when you think about this, groundedness within your soul is exactly what needs to happen in order for us to evolve as a collective. And so, and in order for you to evolve as a soul, but also navigate these, many challenges of the human condition. So think about this. If everybody you knew was anchoring themselves in their soul, if everybody was practicing presence, if everybody was opening their heart space and allowing their heart space to open because of these beautiful energies that are going to provide the opportunity to do so, wouldn't the world be a better place, regardless of the chaos that we see going on outside of us? So it's an energetic joining, not only with our souls, but when we join with our souls, we then join with every other soul that is doing the same kind of work on the planet. And so, this collective energy is building. We have the opportunity to overcome a lot of this adversity that we're seeing, but we have to start somewhere. And it's almost like June is beckoning us to start paying attention and seeing how we play a part in the bigger scheme of how peace happens and how love happens and how harmony happens. So we have to start with ourselves. If we do not start with ourselves, it's not going to get anywhere. And so June is a really cool month, even though there's not a ton of celestial events happening. it's a really cool month because it is beckoning us to come in more contact with our souls. It's beckoning us, it's inviting us, it's asking us, hey, hey, pay attention within. And so it's a really important part of our evolution to just become present, become aware, know how to self-care, how to do soul care, all of those kinds of things. So, it's there still will be triggers. There will be, like I said, this idea of scarcity or stability and things like that. But if you can be mindful and present as you're observing those things arise, you're going to be able to manage them much, much better. So again, self-worth might be an issue. So you might have some challenges with watching what your own self-worth is. And I will tell you, for whatever reason, I tend to kind of experience things ahead of the game. That's probably so I can tell people how to experience them later. I have been experiencing this whole process of, oh gosh, is what I'm doing worth it? Is everything that I'm doing for therapy clients or soul healing clients or teaching people? And, I wasn't doing it in such a way that I was beating myself up, but I was definitely processing, wow, okay, where do I fit in this world? Where is it that this is happening for me? And it's really everything that's supposed to be happening for all of you now. So, if I were to kind of sum this up, one of the best things you can do for June for yourself is practice that presence, but learn the adaptation process and learn how it is that you can adapt as we go, because that's part of presence. And Charles Darwin said he changed his theory about halfway through his work to not only survival of the fittest, but he changed it to basically say those who adapt the best are going to be the species that go through that evolutionary process. That could not be more true for humans. And so, what is the first step in adaptation? It's presence. It's staying very mindful and staying present. What is the first step in helping the world evolve? It's helping your soul evolve. And so that is a powerful statement, is that that's how you have some agency in helping the world evolve, is if you deal with your own shit, heal your things that need to be healed, clear those karmic strands, but then also lean into the presence, lean into the heart space, lean into the compassion. That is how we will change the world, as if we do it individually. And again, June is set up perfectly to set the stage for that. So look at this as, how am I going to adapt? These are my tips for you for the next several days. How am I going to adapt? How am I going to look at what stirs me and look at how I can evolve beyond it, but adapt to the situation so I can come out ahead of it? Also, what are you going to do to ground yourself? With all this fire energy and swirly air energy from the astrological, outlook, it's going to be really important for you to pay attention to daily grounding kinds of strategies. So whether that is literally going out and going for a walk, going for a run, doing some kind of exercise, because that kind of thing physically does ground us. If it is, and actually, number one, I think that is like the magical elixir for everything. So if you're not moving enough, go move, get your bodies moving, get outside. I personally move. I go out fairly early in the morning, or sometimes later in the evening, or I go to places where there aren't going to be a lot of people, because energetically speaking, a lot of people are feeling stressed right now. So if you are energetically sensitive, it's going to be harder for you to ground yourself when you're around a lot of people. And so it's just important for you to figure out what it is that's grounding for you. Nature is very grounding. Literally just putting your hand on a tree and standing there for a while is very grounding. Putting your hands on the ground is literally grounding. It's called earthing. So finding ways to ground yourself from that perspective. From a mind perspective, silencing your mind, finding ways to quiet the monkey mind, finding ways to just soothe kind of those erratic, extraneous kind of thoughts, and calming yourself to just look at the facts. That's another way of grounding. Self-care, up your self-care routine. So, and I don't mean just good hygiene and things like that. I mean, what is it that soothes your soul? What is it that feeds you? Yes, we have to do good nutrition. That is going to help us a ton, because if we put crap on our body, we're not going to feel grounded. We're not going to feel aligned. We're not going to sleep well. We're not going to have great energy. So clean up your diet, eat those whole foods, eat as much organic as possible, drink a lot of water, get again, that nutrition going. That is very grounding for the body to be able to do that. Sleep, pay attention to your sleep. Do what you can to get better sleep. Whether that is quieting your mind, whether that is getting your exercise so you are tired enough to sleep, whether that's taking a hot bath before you go to bed, whatever it is, pay attention to what it is that your body, mind, and soul need for the sake of self and soul care. When I talk about self-care, it's kind of the basics, eating well, nutrition, all that kind of stuff, exercise. But soul care is really what feeds your soul. So make sure as part of your self-care, you're also doing soul care, meaning what is it that feeds me? If you're a creative person, but you're not getting enough of a creative outlet, you've got to find your creative outlet. I mean, there's so many things to pay attention to from a soul care perspective. Being gentle with yourself. So again, beating up on yourself is not going to help you evolve. It's not going to help you feel grounded. But the other thing to pay attention to here is, that self-love piece is the key to soul care. It's self-love is how we evolve. If we are beating up on ourselves, we're not going to eat well. We're not going to exercise. We're not going to do all the things that are healthy for us. So being gentle and kind, and that is going to become easier because of how the stars are going to be aligning, the planets are going to be aligning, so that that compassion can come in. So, there are lots of books about self-compassion. There's a lot of books about being kind to yourself. Do whatever it is that's going to help you soften how you speak with yourself and what you think about yourself so that you can become more tender-hearted towards yourself. Also, stay open, become that observer. Try not to get absorbed by what's going on around you. So, in other words, shut off the news, watch just smidges of it so that you can see what's going on in the world, but don't get absorbed by it. Get yourself kind of so you get the facts and so you can move on beyond that, so you can take care of your soul. But becoming the observer will also help you open that heart space. It's going to help you with your heart chakra. For those of you who really struggle because you've had heartache or you've had, a lot of wounding, a lot of abuse, a lot of emotional kind of turmoil, do what you can to start taking more care of that. And that could be that you need to go to an energy worker to help you with your heart chakra. It could be that you need to get some rose quartz and place it on your heart when you're laying there in bed. It could be that you do the therapy work that you need to do to help release the wounds and help resolve those kinds of things. But heart chakra work right now is going to be really important so your heart space can open. Slow down, slow down, Nelly. It's one of those things where just take a breath. I move fast and I know that, but I also stop. I do hard stops at a certain part of the night so I can just chill, can just rest, can just restore. A lot of times I don't have a TV on, I don't have music on. I just want to either be quiet or read or journal or something. So slow your life down and you would be able to hear your soul a lot more. And like I said, I'm really excited to see how June goes because the planets are aligned in a way for you to step into your soul a lot more and start to understand how important it is to be in that soul space for yourself. So slow down. This is what I wrote. Slow down to observe what is swirling around you. So even though you might be doing some of this work to make sure that you are grounding yourself and being aligned and nurturing yourself, the world could still be swirling around you. People in your family could still be swirling. People at work could still be swirling. But if you can decide, okay, I'm going to go through this month in a different way. I'm going to be more introspective. I'm going to be more self-loving. I'm going to be more self-caring. I'm going to do all of those things. I'm going to be observant. You're not only going to get through this in a whole different way, you're going to feel like it's not really bothering you. The world outside of you will not be affecting you as much if you can get yourself into that space where you're just observing. So the swirling will not end necessarily. It's a very action-oriented month still, but it's one of those things where, the more you are able to just stay present, figure out what it is to stay present, it is going to happen. This month will happen so much differently for you, and you will essentially get through it without even realizing, wow, there's all this stuff was swirling. So again, look at body, look at mind, look at soul, stay observant, do your self-care and your soul care this month, and realize that this is all part of the soul's evolution. But again, if we consciously start to pay attention to our souls, nurturing our souls, taking care of our souls, then it helps the collective. It helps all of the 8.6 billion souls on this planet to do your own work. This is how we can positively affect not only the outside world, but our future in general. So I hope this was helpful. I'd love to hear your comments. I'd love to hear how this is helping you. And most of all, take care of yourselves this month. Be kind to yourselves and stay present. Have a wonderful day.